Roadhouse 2024 is the remake of the 1989 Roadhouse movie. I'll be honest, I've only watched the original Roadhouse once and it was just okay. It's like an 80s action picture. I don't give it any, idolatry of any kind really. I like Patrick Swayze, it's a very simple actioner about a guy fighting people and then he has to fight a guy and to rescue his girlfriend or whatever. It's not really up there with other 80s action movies. Maybe because I watched it later. I watched it when I was older, so I didn't have that nostalgia factor. But this new movie has Jake Gyllenhaal, and I love Jake Gyllenhaal. And it's got a solid director with Doug Liman. It's got Conor McGregor's debut. However, my friend, he watched it on day one. He said it sucked, but I still wanted to watch the movie. It's a action picture with Jake Gyllenhaal. This movie's terrible, though. It's actually like really bad. Okay, so first off, they start the movie with a fight. Post Malone's character is fighting a guy. He defeats him. And then they introduce Jake Gyllenhaal. And he's so tough that like people run away. And then Post Malone's character runs away. And I'm like, you're supposed to show us the fight. The show, don't tell. Instead they're telling us, oh man, this guy's such a badass fighter. We don't need to show it. And then we don't get a fight. Missing some action right there. Anyways, so essentially, Jake Gyllenhaal's character is Elwood Dalton, just called Dalton. He's kind of homeless, really. Something bad happened in the ring because he was a professional MMA fighter, and we don't get shown until the end of the film, but it's annoying because they keep alluding to it. But he's basically homeless and living in his car and just does pit fights for money, and sometimes he doesn't have to fight at all. Until Frankie hires him. She runs a roadhouse in Glass Key, Florida. It's like an island. She wants to give him $5,000 a week just for a month. That way, build up a reputation and she can, reform the rough and tumble place into a paradise on the shore. So he eventually does show up. He meets like a guy who owns a bookstore and the dude's daughter. And then he goes over to them and to the place and stops his first fight. We get our first big action sequence, which is solid. Then he takes him to the hospital. He buys a houseboat from Frankie, and then we find out all the plot shenanigans. There's so many characters. There's like a nurse, there's like a romance, there's like Frankie, then there's like other like aspiring bouncers that he has to train, and there's just too much going on. And then essentially some cliche villain. I think Billy Magnuson plays like the son of a crime lord, and he's doing the same boring nepotism villain that we've seen so many times. He needs to get a better agent because he was pretty good in that Bruce Lee crap movie, the Birth of a Dragon. At least he wasn't evil in that one. He's got the villain face, but he can do other stuff. I liked him in Ingrid Goes West. He can do better. In fact, everyone in this movie can do better than this film. It's just they're not given a lot to do. I like Daniela Melchior, but she's not given much to do except be a damsel in distress. And then who else? Yeah, Conor McGregor's barely in the movie, but he adds a little bit of zany fun to it, but you can't hold up the whole movie. And there's just so many missing action sequences. There's like a scene where Conor McGregor shows up and he's all like, oh, I'm the guy that the rich guy's son isn't doing a good job, so he hired me to like deal with it. And then they're like, no, and then they just cut to them like knocked out. And I'm like, come on, you can't do that. I want to see Conor McGregor like wreck some people. You need to show the audience what your main antagonist fighter can do. And if you don't do that, then it's like, eh. So there's only 2 fights with Conor McGregor and Jake Gyllenhaal. They're both solid. There's some experimental camera work going on there with like maybe drones or something. But I mean, I like those 2 action sequences, but it's just not enough. And there's like a lot of cliche. There's a pretty awesome boat sequence on the water. Some cliche like, oh, I have the girlfriend or whatever. But basically the main arc for Dalton is that if he gets violent, he gets too violent and they push him too far. So he ends up like trying to wreck everyone and he becomes a vigilante or something. And I think the movie kind of loses itself in theme. It doesn't really stick the landing in terms of like, what does Dalton want? Does he want a fresh start? Because he ruined that, by going too violent or whatever. And then he doesn't really like go with the girl or anything. And I don't know, the movie just seemed kind of aimless. It didn't know what it wanted to be. It had all the right elements. You got Doug Liman, solid director. You got a decent budget. You've got a huge cast of all these stars. Jake Gyllenhaal, Conor McGregor, Danielle Melchior, that actor who always plays a corrupt Latino guy. But yeah, overall, not enough action. I need more fighting. They could have inserted a little bit more here or there. They could have had the actual full MMA fight be like an action sequence, and then like Jake Gyllenhaal's telling it to the girl he likes. I just didn't like the movie. It just didn't work on most levels. They introduced like the villains attack the bookstore owner for no reason. Like, I don't know, man. The movie just rubbed me the wrong way. I gave the Roadhouse remake a 2 out of 10.